Chapter 233. His mind was in a mess. Li Qingshan immediately felt his body tighten. He struggled, but the chains did not budge at all. He knew that with his current strength, he definitely could not break free from a high-grade spiritual artifact unless he demonified. In the blink of an eye, 9 flying knives crisscrossed and attacked him. Time seemed to slow down. The flying knives revolved slowly, producing an ear-piercing tremor. It was stretched out into a long note. His clear eyes reflected the edge of the knife. It was only half a foot away. Li Qingshan collapsed on his back, and the flying knife brushed past his face. Swish, swish, swish. The flying knives dragged with them, weaving into a flash above his head. If they were hidden weapons, then Li Qingshan would have survived, but this was a spiritual artifact wielded by a 6th-layer Qi practitioner. The flying knives stopped above Li Qingshan's head at the same time. They turned around and plunged down. Li Qingshan rolled on the ground. Thump, 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 thump. The flying knives stabbed into the ground he had just rolled over, plunging him into even more danger. His expression was still very calm, but the bewilderment in his eyes seemed to have deepened. Was this the danger he sensed? Just why was he here? And why was he surrounded by these people? He had been betrayed, hunted, forced, and surrounded. Everything that was originally very clear seemed to have become complicated, a mess. His mind raced, but he did not stop at all. He had already aimed the whale's ingestion of water at the chains and sprayed out ice condensate water. With the last bit of Gui water true Qi, he froze a thick layer of ice over it. Li Qingshan shrank back. By the time the chains had crushed the ice, he had already escaped. His true Qi immediately began to circulate again. He forcefully twisted his body and dodged the flying knives by a hair's breadth again, retreating into the hut with a flash. The hut was not made of regular wood. Although the formations had been destroyed, it was still as tough as metal, so he could temporarily hide. The whale's ingestion of water spat out the crystal blade. Li Qingshan frowned and barked. Can the Hawkwolf Guard treat human lives like grass? Wu Zhen was shocked. He didn't think that someone would be able to escape his python constrictor chains. Seeing the spirit tool in Li Qingshan's hand, his eyes flashed. He raised his hand and said, "Stop attacking and surround him." The Hawkwolf Guards immediately obeyed the order and flew over, surrounding the hut. Wu Zhen then said, "We are here to arrest the remaining evil of the White Lotus sect, Qiu Ruelio. I see that you are one of the remaining evil of the White Lotus sect, and you still dare to resist arrest. You really don't know life from death." Li Qingshan did not expect Priest Qiu to have such a background. Now that he thought about it, the way he spoke did seem like he was from a cult. Qiu Ruelio. Are you talking about a skinny little Daoist? He has already been killed by me. You say that I am a remnant of the White Lotus sect, but what proof do you have? The Hawkwolf Guards were shocked. Their target this time was actually dead already. Was this true? You think you can kill a member of the White Lotus sect alone? I don't believe you. Whether you have proof or not, we'll know once we investigate. If you surrender right now, you can still keep your life. Our Hawkwolf Guard will never wrongly accuse an innocent person. We'll investigate this thoroughly, and we'll obviously let you go. Wu Zhen said that he didn't believe it, yet he was slightly convinced in his heart. Merely this was something that an ordinary Qi practitioner wasn't capable of escaping from their encirclement. It would obviously be for the best if he could outsmart an enemy like that. He would use the authority of the Hawkwolf Guard to frighten him first, and once he was captured, he would be at their mercy. Who knew how many times he had done something like this already? Li Qingshan said, "What a joke. We're all Qi practitioners, so why would we entrust our lives to others?" Wu Zhen sneered. "Then there's nothing else to say. Get him." He refused to believe that they could not capture him with so many people. Hold on. Wu Zhen turned around with a frown. Only when he saw that it was Qian Rongji did his expression ease up slightly. "Rongji, what do you have to say for yourself?" "Sir, isn't our Nighthawk nearby? We can just get him to identify him. That way, if we get the wrong person, it'll be bad," Qian Rongji said with some worry. Wu Zhen frowned heavily. Women would always be women. They were still too soft-hearted. This person was clearly quite wealthy. If they captured him first and asked him about his origins, then if he did not come from any powerful sect, they could just kill him in the truth-seeking society. Wouldn't that be even better? However, he obviously could not say something like that in front of so many commanders, so he sank into thought. Senior brother, Rongji is right. Let's get to the bottom of this. We can't let a good person fall for us, said a young man with a square face beside Qian Rongji. Only then did Wu Zhen finally nod. All right. Send the signal and get him to come over. The square-faced young man was the newest Black Hawk commander of Jiaping City. Just like Wu Zhen, he came from the 100 schools of thought, which was why he referred to him as senior brother. Compared to the other Black Hawk commanders, he was much younger. His talent could be regarded as extraordinary, so increasing his cultivation by a few more layers would not be difficult. After a few years of training below, he would obviously be transferred back to the Clear River Prefecture and promoted to Scarlet Copper. Coupled with their many years of friendship, Wu Zhen obviously valued his opinion a lot more. He would not refute it so easily. Before long, a black wolf guard emerged from the forest. He bowed in all directions. I'm Zhou Pei. Greetings to everyone. The square-faced young man said, Zhou Pei, do you recognize this person? That burly man over there, come out and let him recognize you. Li Qingshan found the voice familiar, but he was unable to recall where he had heard it before. He arrived at the entrance in a flash and met the Black Wolf Guard's eyes. The two of them said at the same time, Zhou Wei. Niu Juxia. This Zhou Pei was the chi practitioner Zhou Wei who did not like to talk much by Han Xiong's side when he first met him. He never thought he would actually be a nighthawk. The so-called nighthawk was a hawk that never saw the light of day. It was an extremely special position within the Hawkwolf Guard. They would infiltrate various organizations with different identities and gather information. An information network in the world of mortals could be established by bribing some people of the Jianghu. However, establishing a network like that in the world of cultivation required cultivators. Because this job was very arduous, not only was it shameful, but it could even easily endanger one's life. Regardless of their cultivation, they were all known as hawks. Li Qingshan had only heard a rough introduction when he joined the Hawkwolf Guard. This was the first time he had seen someone like this. Zhou Wei, or Zhou Pei, immediately reported what had happened in the bookstore and restaurant that day, proving that Li Qingshan had indeed been tricked and was not a member of the truth-seeking society. With that, he stood to one side with his head lowered. He only glanced at Li Qingshan in surprise. He never thought he would actually destroy the entire truth-seeking society alone. Priest Xiu had basically dug his own grave. Only now did everyone understand the whole story. They looked at one another and waited for Wu Zhen's decision. The square-faced young man sighed. Fortunately, Rongji reminded me. I didn't kill the wrong person. Qian Rongji said politely, You're too kind, Commander. Chapter 234. However, what Qian Rongji thought was that this commander had just graduated from the 100 schools of thought, so he sure was naive. He actually took the laws of Great Xia seriously. All laws were for people to use. There was no reason not to slaughter a fat sheep. The sacred church, the reason why she had played the good guy this time was because she was afraid the fat sheep would turn into a vicious tiger. From the first moment she saw him, she found Li Qingshan familiar. If it were Yu Zijian or Hua Qinglu, then he would just be familiar. She would not think too much about it. It was exactly because Li Qingshan's colossal figure was just too shocking that people would misunderstand him instead. She felt like she would never forget this person if she had seen him before. However, Qian Rongji's thoughts were much deeper and meticulous. Although Li Qingshan's appearance had changed drastically, the impression he had left on her was just far too deep. This impression was no longer limited to just his appearance. The changes in his expression, the way he spoke, and his attitude towards the enemy all matched up with the man in her heart. Coupled with the gaze that had stopped on her face, she concluded very soon that there was a 70 to 80% chance that this person was Li Qingshan. After reaching this conclusion, how could she allow the Hawkwolf Guard to continue arguing with Li Qingshan? Li Qingshan possessed the strength to kill 2 9th-layer Qi practitioners. Now that a few months had passed, who knew just how powerful he had become? The reason why she had held back was because she did not want anyone to see her trump card. If she really forced him to reveal his trump card, then probably everyone present would be silenced. She did not believe she possessed any special status in his heart. However, Wu Zhen was rather displeased. That would mean he would lose out, and he would not be able to recover the dignity he had lost just now. As a Scarlet Wolf Guard, he was not bold enough to distort the truth before so many people. Otherwise, if someone reported him, he would not be able to escape the punishment of the law either. He said to Zhou Pei rather reluctantly, "You've done very well. Once we return, you'll definitely receive a share of merit." Zhou Pei said, "I don't ask for any merit. I only ask that you let me leave my position as a Nighthawk and return to being a regular Black Wolf Guard." The Great Wall. Wu Zhen waved his hand impatiently. "Okay, I got it. I will report it to the higher-ups." Then he said to Li Qingshan, "You can go now." Li Qingshan used his true qi to gather all of the 100 treasures pouches into his hand. Wu Zhen glared at him. "Leave it behind." With a point of his finger, the iron chains stretched out like a python and coiled around the small house. They shook their heads and clattered loudly, as if they wanted to devour someone. The other Hawkwolf commanders were hostile as well. They had not come out to carry out their missions just to enforce the laws of Great Xia. The spoils of battle on their enemies were an extremely important source of income. How could they just watch someone else dip their fingers in it? Li Qingshan insisted, "These are my spoils of war." Wu Zhen said, "These are the spoils of the White Lotus sect. There might be information on the remnants of the White Lotus sect in there. I'd advise you to hand them over, or I'll charge you with the crime of harboring stolen goods." Li Qingshan smiled furiously. "I've completed your mission for you, yet you're not thanking me? Instead, you're trying to frame me?" Wu Zhen said, "Do you think you're worthy of being framed by us? If you're smart, you'd better piss off, or don't blame us for being merciless." The other commanders cooperated, sending their flying blades flying over once again. Li Qingshan felt like something was surging in his chest. It was something he had always suppressed at the very bottom of his heart. It was roaring and bellowing, wanting to break out of its cocoon. There should be a limit to how reckless you can be. "I don't want to die with you idiots." Qian Rongji lowered her head and frowned. She cursed in her heart, but she didn't say anything. Her words carried little weight, and it would be pointless to say anything. Instead, she would offend a large group of colleagues for no reason. Anyway, if it really came to that, she had a way to escape. The square-faced youth said, "Senior, this is a little inappropriate." He then said to Li Qingshan, "Hey man, just leave Qiu Ruelio's 100 treasures pouch. The information about the White Lotus sect in there is very important. Even if you get it, it won't do you any good." In Xianxia, Wu Zhen sighed helplessly. If other commanders dared to act on their own, he would have been furious. However, Fang and Shang was very familiar with him from the 100 schools of thought. They had been classmates for many years, and what he said was reasonable, so Wu Zhen couldn't do anything. When he first came out of the 100 schools of thought, he was influenced by the legalists for many years. His thoughts were also about upholding justice and protecting the dignity of Great Xia's laws. However, only after experiencing some worldly affairs could he understand that the spirit and the laws were not as important as the spiritual pills and spiritual weapons in the 100 treasures pouch. Forget it, I guess that group of small rogue cultivators didn't have anything decent in their hands. Li Qingshan hesitated slightly. He weighed the pros and cons in his heart. The truly valuable things were probably all plundered by Priest Qiu. If he turned hostile, he would turn into a demon and kill everyone in front of him. He couldn't let anyone escape. This included Nighthawk Zhou Pei, the square-faced youth, and Qian Rongji. A voice in his heart said hesitantly, "Do I really have to kill them all?" Immediately, another ferocious voice roared, "Kill them all! Kill them all!" His expression kept changing, and his body actually trembled slightly. He understood what it meant to be in a battle between heaven and man. Wu Zhen said impatiently, "Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Li Qingshan suddenly raised his head. "Qiu Ruelio's 100 treasures pouch is not with me." Wu Zhen said angrily, You dare to trick me? The python constrictor chain wrapped around the wooden house, and the wooden house was completely destroyed. Wood splinters flew everywhere. Li Qingshan said plainly, I'm telling the truth. Just now, when he was checking the 100 treasures pouch, he suddenly realized that one was missing. He knew how many enemies there were in the battle just now. The one missing was Priest Chio's. Priest Chio's corpse was already gone. He originally thought that it was completely destroyed in the explosion. Now that he thought about it, even if it was blown into pieces, it was impossible to not leave a trace. However, there was nothing on the ground. Li Qingshan frowned and came to the place where Priest Chio's corpse just now was lying on the ground. He took a few steps left and right, and with a swing of his knife, he split open the floor and revealed a dark hole. He didn't know where the hole led to. The spirit formation in the wooden house was an impenetrable iron wall to others, but this spirit formation was set up by Priest Chio, so he naturally knew the exit. It turned out that he had already prepared a way out. Although he was hit by the cursive sword calligraphy's sword chi at close range, he still had the true chi of more than 20 people protecting him. Although he was heavily injured, he didn't die on the spot. He knew that he wasn't Li Qingshan's opponent, so he just lay on the ground, sealed his breathing, and pretended to be dead. The risk of this gamble was quite great. If Li Qingshan had sensed it and casually followed up with a stab, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to put up a fight. But back then, the wooden house was in a mess. Under the encirclement of so many chi practitioners, Li Qingshan was not afraid, but his mind was still affected. In the end, during the explosion, when Li Qingshan's sense of hearing, smell, and vision were all affected, Priest Chio used this opportunity to open a secret passage and flee. Li Qingshan could not help but be surprised by the craftiness and caution of the White Lotus sect. It was no wonder that they were a powerful organization that could contend against Gu Yenying and even the entire Hawkwolf Guard of the Rui Commandery. He turned around and wielded his ice blade, ignoring the chains around him. If you don't believe me, then come at me. Qian Rongji made her way towards Li Qingshan quickly. Fang Yinshang extended his hand. Don't go. He wanted to stop Qian Rongji, but he was afraid that he would alarm Li Qingshan if he acted rashly. The Hawkwolf guards all broke into a sweat for Qian Rongji. This vicious, huge man was extremely powerful. If he really attacked someone, Qian Rongji would probably die on the spot. Under everyone's gazes, Qian Rongji brushed past Li Qingshan and checked the hole in the center of the house. Li Qingshan frowned. This woman was not someone who would take such great risks for the sake of official business. Had she discovered something? Qian Rongji did not even glance at him. After a close inspection, she raised her head and said, He's right. There are very fresh footprints down there. Chio Ruelio has already fled. He should be injured. Sir, let's hurry up and track him down. If we delay any longer, he'll be able to escape. The Hawkwolf guards all let out a sigh of relief. This conclusion matched up with their expectations. Chio Ruelio was extremely crafty. He had failed several times in encirclement, so how could an independent cultivator kill him so easily? They even admired Qian Rongji a little. This woman's cultivation was not particularly high, but her courage was extraordinary. At the very least, none of them were bold enough to approach her like that. Even Wu Zhen nodded in praise. With the support of a person like that, it would be easy for Yinshang to become a Black Hawk commander. He would not remain so naive. Little did he know that Fang Yinshang's naivety had saved him from death, while Qian Rongji's so-called courage was built on meticulous planning. Wu Zhen understood the severity of the situation. He stowed away the python constrictor chains and flew into the hole first, brushing past Li Qingshan. He snorted coldly. Consider yourself lucky. Over a dozen Hawkwolf guards entered the hole one by one. Qian Rongji was the last one. She glanced at Li Qingshan and smiled before vanishing into the hole as well. A while later, the quiet spring valley recovered its tranquility once more. Li Qingshan made his way down the steps and sat down on them. He leaned on his hand and sank into his thoughts. The final outcome of the battle between man and nature this time was to leave it at that. However, the even greater battle between man and nature was in the depths of his mind. That was the boundary between man, immortal, Buddha, and demon. The true conflict did not originate from the outside world, but from within. It was a series of questions that he could not answer, an answer that he could not choose. However, there had to be an answer. Not all questions could be avoided. He could not avoid them, nor did he want to avoid them. Even though none of the answers were what he wanted, he still had to make a choice. Life was not about doing what you wanted. It was not about doing what you liked. It was exactly through these difficult or even painful choices that people could grow, going from an ignorant child to the type of person they wanted to become. Are you ready? I've finally found you. Chapter 235. Li Qingshan sighed gently and stood up with his hands on his knees. He was like a boxer who had yet to recover from the previous match before being forced into a different ring. However, there was no fear in his eyes at all. This must be it. Before he knew it, it had begun to snow again. Flickering figures passed through the curtains of snow. Their luxurious silk robes fluttered in the wind, but they did not leave behind a single mark on the snow. They were like ghosts in the snow. The ghosts looked at Li Qingshan like hunters who had found their prey. They were at ease. If they were slightly cautious, that would be because they were worried that their prey would escape. The first senior brother pointed at Li Qingshan and asked, "Junior brother Song, is this the person you're looking for?" Song Ming said resentfully, "First senior brother, that's him." Fourth layer Qi practitioner? The first senior brother curled his lip in great disdain. Song Ming, aren't you a little too useless? You're a sixth layer Qi practitioner, yet you've actually been defeated by someone weaker than you. And I had originally thought it was some powerful person. The disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain roared with laughter. They only felt even more relaxed and happy. They did not take Li Qingshan seriously at all. Song Ming's face reddened. First senior brother, his cultivation as a Qi practitioner isn't great, but he's a master of the body practitioner. He took a palm strike from me and came out unscathed. You can't be careless. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and sensed. A 9th layer Qi practitioner, 2 8th layer Qi practitioners, 5 7th layer Qi practitioners, and 10 6th layer Qi practitioners. Was this the strength of a sect? Only by demonifying could he fight them, but it was very likely for him to draw over their seniors if he fought here. Look, this guy's closed his eyes. Is he resigned to his fate? A disciple of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain smiled. Before he had even finished speaking, a thick mist rose up, surging like waves. Li Qingshan turned around and vanished into the mist. Oh no, it's a mist talisman. He's trying to escape. Song Ming cried out. As if someone had plucked the clouds from the sky, the mist rapidly filled the entire valley. The pure white mist was extremely thick, where one could not even see their own fingers. It contained water spiritual Qi, such that even the vision of Qi practitioners was greatly affected. Eldest senior brother snorted coldly, insignificant tricks. With a flick of his sleeves, a spell was cast, and a strong gust of wind blew, clearing away the fog. The valley was filled with the howling of the wind, causing everyone's clothes to flutter loudly. Li Qingshan's figure suddenly appeared. He had already rushed to the hillside in the distance and was fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Since he couldn't fight, he could only flee. Eldest senior brother's wild wind technique is really powerful. You're too naive to think that you can escape with such a small trick. The disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain praised him. They did not slow down at all. Their sleeves fluttered in the wind as they chased after Li Qingshan. Back then, when Song Ming flew into the proud sword manner, he could already be considered to be extremely confident. However, there were at least a dozen people here who were even stronger than him. Every time they flew, they would cover a distance of 100 zhang. Pride appeared on the eldest senior brother's face. Only after all his junior brothers had set off did he shake his sleeves and take off. He caught up to everyone even though he had set off later. He took the lead and rapidly closed the distance between him and Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan used the tiger demon climbs the mountain and leapt onto the top of the mountain. Hearing the whistling, he suddenly looked back. The eldest senior brother reached an even higher altitude than the top of the mountain and bellowed out, "Peck of the golden pheasant." His right hand formed the shape of a pheasant's head, and he pecked at Li Qingshan from afar. He was like a golden pheasant pecking at a bug on the ground. He did it with indescribable ease, as if it was nothing at all. However, Li Qingshan felt like he was facing a great disaster, because he was playing the role of this bug. A huge, golden beak pierced through the air. He had already used the greatest technique of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. The disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain all sighed in amazement inside. Although this technique was taught to all inner disciples, how could it compare to the ingenuity of the first senior brothers? They had never thought the first senior brother would use such a powerful technique right off the bat. The kid was dead for sure. The sacred Hall Li Qingshan felt like no matter how he dodged, he would not be able to avoid this gentle peck. He raised his right hand, and the whale's mouth sucked in light before suddenly spitting out a fist-sized, transparent ball of water. Boom! The Gui water lightning collided with the pheasant beak in the air. A ring of light erupted, and the wild wind crushed the forest, forming a scene of wheat. The first senior brother blurted out, "Gui water lightning." His true chi surged and dispersed the incoming wave of air, but he also slowed down slightly. How could a mere fourth-layer chi practitioner use the Gui water lightning? Suddenly, he noticed the spiritual artifact in Li Qingshan's hand and came to a realization. High-grade spiritual artifact, Song Ming was right. This kid really was extremely wealthy. He was a great prey worth hunting. However, the disciples on the ground were not as relaxed as him. A few of them were blown backwards by the wild wind with insufficient cultivation. They could only swallow the words of flattery they were about to utter. Their faces were filled with shock. How could a fourth-layer chi practitioner block the first senior brother's peck of the golden pheasant? Only Song Ming called out, "I told you! This guy isn't easy to deal with." He actually felt a sense of elation. Instead, he hoped Li Qingshan could use a few more powerful moves and last a little longer against his first senior brother. That would prove that he was not useless back then. Instead, the enemy was just too powerful. Li Qingshan used this time to leap off the top of the mountain. His head was below his feet, and the world was flipped upside down. Cold wind whistled past his face. He took out the underground mental map and unfurled it with both hands, reading it in the air. The nearest entrance to the underground cave was only 30 li away, under a mountain peak. If it was on the plains, the 30 li distance would only be a matter of time, but in the mountains, every few li meant that they had to cross a mountain. Although this was still a remnant of the boundless mountains and had not truly entered the depths, the mountains were tall and majestic. They could not be measured with common sense. Any one of these mountains could be regarded as a famed mountain on earth from Li Qingshan's past life. Even with the tiger demon climbs the mountains, Li Qingshan's speed was greatly affected. He casually stuck a mid-grade swift breeze talisman on himself, which made him move slightly faster. The withered trees seemed to be slamming towards him, but even with that, he was unable to widen the distance between them. Every time he looked back, the 9th-layer chi practitioner would get a little closer. However, he was not worried. What he was thinking about was not just running away. The first senior brother was extremely surprised as well. A 4th-layer chi practitioner could actually erupt with such speed. He used the golden pheasant flaps its wings and spent most of the time gliding through the air, unaffected by the terrain, yet he was still unable to catch up immediately. This independent cultivator really was not easy to deal with. The two of them crossed over the mountains and gradually pulled away from the disciples behind them. The killing intent in Li Qingshan's eyes became heavier and heavier. He casually tossed down a spiritual stone that had run out of spiritual chi before grabbing another one to quickly replenish his true chi. He had already taken out the cursive sword calligraphy and placed it in his bosom. He could take it out at any time and kill his opponent. Li Qingshan turned around and glanced at the first senior brother, who was less than 300 meters away from him. However, he looked past the first senior brother, gazing at the even higher sky. The sky had already darkened, and snow filled the air. Apart from him, no one noticed a rapidly flashing red star high up in the sky. Little and stood on a huge skull, dragging a scarlet tail of flames behind him as he passed through the snowstorm. His robes and long hair fluttered in the wind as red light flickered in his eyes. His gaze pierced through the snowstorm, gazing at the mountains. A snowy night like this, a mountainous terrain like this, and a scene like this all seemed familiar. Unknowingly, a year had already passed. However, this time, she would not be as weak as before. She would not have to watch helplessly as he left by himself in despair. This time, she would definitely help him. All she had to do was wait for him to give the signal to attack. Li Qingshan thought to himself, a little further, a little further. The first senior brother had no idea that he had already fallen into a trap where the world intersected. The roles of hunter and prey had silently swapped. He had never imagined that a mere fourth-layer Qi practitioner could harm him at all. Once again, Li Qingshan climbed to the peak of a tall mountain. The first senior brother took this opportunity to close the distance between them to within 300 feet. A look of joy appeared on his face as he raised his right hand. A golden light shot out, piercing through the snowstorm and leaving a straight golden line in its wake. Li Qingshan sensed the danger. He did not have time to turn around, so he held the ice blade behind him. With a ding, the golden light pierced deeply into the ice blade. Li Qingshan's perlicue trembled violently. Just now, he could clearly see that the golden light was a golden feather. The mystic ice that was frozen by the ice condensate water was as hard as a top-grade spiritual weapon. Yet, it was pierced by this tiny feather. Its power was even greater than Grandma Shimon's red thread needle. Protective qi and spells would be as fragile as a piece of paper. Even if it was a defensive spiritual weapon, if it was not a top-grade one, it would probably be pierced through in one blow. The first senior brother became even more surprised. He saw how the peck of the golden pheasant could not kill Li Qingshan, so he definitely would not use it a second time. He switched to using his life-bound spiritual artifact, the golden pheasant's plume. However, he never thought it would be blocked by the ice blade. The golden pheasant's plume was not a regular high-grade spiritual artifact. Instead, it was a spiritual artifact that the disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain had begun nurturing ever since they began practicing qi. They constantly poured their true qi into it, and whenever their cultivation increased, they would add in essence gold to forge it. Only then did they manage to forge a single golden pheasant's plume. The amount of effort they had put into it was uncountable. However, its power was terrifyingly great, and it could only be used by the user of the sect. Li Qingshan did not leap into the pitch-black valley. Instead, he stopped and turned around. The ice blade in his hand rapidly changed shape, wrapping around the golden pheasant's plume and turning it into a huge lump of ice. The first senior brother stood at the top of a lone pine tree, which swayed in the wind and snow. He sneered. "You're not running anymore?" He looked around. This really is a nice place to be buried. He did not care about what Li Qingshan was doing at all. Li Qingshan said, "I'll give you back exactly what you said." He had already sprayed out all of the ice condensate water, wrapping the golden pheasant's plume into a ball. He stepped on it. The first senior brother snorted coldly. "Stubborn and stubborn. You're still using these puny tricks? I'll show you the power of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. The golden pheasant's radiance." The golden pheasant's plume erupted with dazzling light, illuminating the ball of ice completely and turning it golden. It was a beautiful sight. However, Li Qingshan could sense that the ice was rapidly melting, as if it was suppressed by the power of the golden pheasant's plume. It was unable to trap the golden pheasant's plume. The first senior brother dove down. "Be smarter in your next life. Don't offend the disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain." Chapter 236. The cursive sword calligraphy unfurled with a whoosh, and first senior brother could clearly see the complicated and profound handwriting on it. It was clearly ink on paper, but it was so sharp that it seemed like it had been carved on a cliff with a sword. Holy hell, a great sense of danger filled his heart. The sound of the blizzard seemed to have stopped. Compared to the speed of the sword qi, the speed of the dancing snowflakes was like a still image. First senior brother's pupils constricted. He waved his hand, and the golden pheasant's plume enlarged 100 times, protecting his body like an iron wall. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of metal clashing rang out, and the surging sword chi sent first senior brother flying into the sky. First senior brother floated in the air on the golden pheasant's plume, like a small boat on a turbulent ocean, in danger of capsizing at any moment. However, he drifted with the current and actually formed a wondrous balance. He floated and swayed without being affected by any force. Not only was the golden pheasant's plume capable of both offense and defense, but its defensive method was also the most natural and unrestrained that Li Qingshan had ever seen. A sect that could form its own style indeed couldn't be underestimated. The Gui water true qi in Li Qingshan's body surged madly into the cursive sword calligraphy, activating the strokes of sword qi. At the same time, he held a spirit stone in one hand and continuously replenished his spirit qi. In the blink of an eye, 3 spirit stones had been thrown at Li Qingshan's feet. A supreme-grade spiritual artifact. You actually have a supreme-grade spiritual artifact. First senior brother stood on the golden pheasant's plume and shouted in the wind and snow. He suddenly laughed wildly. I didn't think I would have this kind of luck. Kid, with your strength, you still can't unleash the power of a supreme-grade spiritual artifact. Falling into your hands is like casting pearls before swine. Obediently hand it over. I'm the favored child of the heavens. I'll step on your corpse to reach a higher realm. If a high-grade spirit artifact could make every Qi practitioner's heart race with envy, then a supreme-grade spirit artifact could make all Qi practitioners go crazy. It was a treasure that even Foundation establishment cultivators would fight for with all their might. Li Qingshan's mouth opened and closed slightly. His voice was swallowed by the wind, but first senior brother could read his lips. Die! 2 giant skulls spiraled down from the sky, breaking through the wind and letting out shrill screams. It was as if 100 ghosts were crying at night, shaking one's soul. What is that? Eldest senior brother's expression changed drastically. He used the golden pheasant's plume to fly through the wind and snow. He actually borrowed the force of the sword qi to turn a few times without any warning, drawing out a twisted golden trajectory and avoiding the skull's attack. Pang, pang, pang. He broke through the air barrier and quickly fell down the pitch-black cliff. He thought to himself, not good, I've fallen into this brat's trap. The screeching sound followed him like a shadow. Eldest senior brother looked around and saw 2 skulls chasing after him, one on the left and one on the right. The blood flames in their eye sockets flickered and their teeth chattered loudly. They couldn't wait to tear his flesh apart. From afar, one could only see a golden line and 2 slightly thinner red lines falling straight down into the bottomless abyss. The golden thread's trajectory was extremely erratic, and the 2 red threads kept circling around it, locking down the golden thread's escape route. At this moment, 2 red lines suddenly cut into the golden line's trajectory. The 2 skulls lunged towards the first senior brother. The first senior brother snorted coldly. Puny tricks. He raised his hands at the same time and swung them outwards. 2 golden beaks pecked the foreheads of the skulls viciously. With 2 thumps, he sent the 2 skulls flying. However, at the last moment, they opened their mouths, and 2 figures appeared in the roaring flames. One was tall, while the other was petite. They were Li Qingshan and Little N. They leapt out of the skulls at the same time. Li Qingshan held the cursive sword of the 9 heavens as he charged towards the first senior brother. The first senior brother felt like the entire world was being ripped apart by the crisscrossing sword qi. Panic and fear finally appeared in his eyes for the first time. He reached for the 100 treasures pouch on his waist. His movements were extremely fast, but compared to the speed of the sword qi, it was so sluggish. He had never thought that he would need to waste talismans and spiritual stones against a 4th-layer qi practitioner, so he had not made any preparations at all. I'm a genius, the future sect master of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. My future is limitless. I can't die here. That thought flashed through the first senior brother's head. The sword qi vanished with a flash. The first senior brother lowered his head and looked at himself. He laughed aloud. I'm not dead. I won't. His words came to a halt, and his chin fell down, revealing many crisscrossing bloody marks. The marks shifted and staggered. With a soft thump, a bloody mist erupted in the air. Pieces of his corpse rained down from the sky, but before they could even land, they were incinerated by the flames. Having lost control, the golden pheasant's plume returned to its original size, drifting away in the wind. Li Qingshan and Little N landed on the ground at the same time. Little N grabbed the golden pheasant's plume, while Li Qingshan opened his hand. There was 100 treasures pouch in it. The two of them smiled at each other. An indescribable feeling of tacit understanding rose up in their hearts. Li Qingshan shoved the talisman between his fingers back into his belt. This was a supreme-grade talisman he had obtained from Grandma Shiman. He had no idea what it was used for. He followed the trajectory on the talisman and checked the Book of All, but he did not find any corresponding information. Low and mid-grade talismans did, however, have a very complete record. Clearly, the value of a supreme-grade talisman like this was not something the Book of All could record. However, he did not buy the book for nothing. Little N deduced that this talisman should be a fire element offensive talisman through looking at the patterns of the other talismans. Among the 5 elements, fire could be regarded as one of the best. The power of a supreme-grade talisman went without saying. Li Qingshan planned to immediately activate the supreme-grade talisman and kill the first senior brother if he and Little N still could not kill him even when they worked together. If he failed again, he would kill the first senior brother even if it meant leaving behind traces of demon chi and turning into a demon. Before the battle had even begun, he was already completely confident in victory. The people behind us are catching up. Little N licked his lips with the tip of his tongue. The flesh and blood of a 9th-layer chi practitioner was far more delicious than that of an ordinary person. I'll send them all to heaven. A red light flashed in Li Qingshan's eyes. After 3 consecutive battles, his bloodlust and killing intent had been completely stimulated. His fatigue had long since disappeared without a trace. Even the confused thoughts and the intense battle between heaven and man no longer existed. He only needed to kill more. When faced with a choice between life and death, there was no need to waste time choosing. He wanted to live and kill all his enemies. It was that simple. Li Qingshan and Little N did not even exchange a glance. They quickly disappeared into the pitch-black valley, forming a stalemate and quietly waiting for their prey to take the bait. Li Qingshan buried his body in the snow and held his breath in concentration. The second wave should be 2 8th-layer chi practitioners. Since he couldn't turn into a demon, it would not be easy to deal with them either. If the two of them cooperated well, they might be even more difficult to deal with than the 9th-layer chi practitioner just now. He had to launch a sneak attack at the first moment. Once he killed one of them, the other would be easy to deal with. After this wave, the rest would be easy to deal with. The cursive sword calligraphy could instantly kill 6th or 7th-layer chi practitioners. Little N, with the help of the 2 skull prayer beads and the sword techniques recorded in the cursive sword calligraphy, would not be able to last a single round. When the difference in strength reached a certain level, numbers became meaningless. He was also completely confident in this battle, but for some reason, the unease in his heart did not relax. Instead, it grew stronger and stronger. His heart beat faster and faster. Not good, let's go. Li Qingshan jumped out of the snow and called out to Little N. Then he immediately sprinted towards the underground cave that he had predetermined. Little N flew to Li Qingshan's side and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Li Qingshan said, "I don't know, but it's very dangerous." Little N thought for a while before suddenly raising his head. "I understand now. It's the sect master of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, a Foundation establishment cultivator." Li Qingshan frowned. A Foundation establishment cultivator? Yes, probably only Foundation establishment cultivators could give him such a great sense of danger and pressure. If it were a chi practitioner, even if they were only at the 10th layer, he was confident he could slaughter his way out even at the risk of exposing himself and transforming into a demon. He might even have the chance to turn the tables. However, Foundation establishment cultivators were experts on an order of magnitude higher. The spells they cast were all the power of supreme-grade spirit talismans, not to mention the effects of spirit artifacts. Even if Li Qingshan transformed, he definitely could not contend against them. However, he had only just killed the Qi practitioner of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain in a snowy mountain like this. He did not even have the opportunity to call for reinforcements, so how did he alert the attention of a Foundation establishment cultivator? Little and could see Li Qingshan's doubts. She explained, the Book of All records that the core disciples of sects often have life lamps. The life lamps are in the hands of the sect master. If a disciple dies, the life lamp that belongs to them will be extinguished, and the location will be indicated. It went without saying that 9th-layer Qi practitioners would definitely be the core figures among the core figures in sections. Li Qingshan still had no idea that his first senior brother was the future sect master of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. A while ago, at the top of the Green Vine Mountain 50 kilometers away, 3 old men sat before one another, discussing the herb-gathering ceremony of the 3 mountains. They were the supreme rulers of the 3 mountains, the sect masters of the Green Vine Mountain, Pheasant's Grace Mountain, and Burial Mound Mountain. They were collectively known as the 3 elders. The Green Vine elder was the host, sitting in the seat of honor. He was dressed in green clothes and his hair and beard curled down his face. Basically, only a pair of clear eyes remained. To the left of the Green Vine elder sat an old man in gray robes. His eyes were white, and his face was expressionless as if even his face was gray. He gave off a faint aura of corpses. His eyes would swivel from time to time, but they did not show any signs of life at all. If regular people saw him, they would probably treat him as a corpse. Even the swiveling of his eyes would be treated as a fake corpse. He was the sect master of the Burial Mound Mountain, the Lone Grave Elder. To the right of the Green Vine Elder was an old man in luxurious, golden robes. He was obviously the sect master of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, the Golden Pheasant Elder. His clothes were no longer embroidered with feathers, but a golden pheasant's head. The pheasant's comb was like fire, while the beak was like a blade. Chapter 237. A map was placed on the table before the 3 of them. It glowed with light. It formed a 3-dimensional image in the air. It was an underground mental map, much larger than Li Qingshan's. This underground mental map was what the disciples of the 3 mountains had come up with over all these years. They had sacrificed countless lives to determine a relatively safe region. It was Milliped's territory. The Golden Pheasant Elder pointed at a corner of the map with his skinny, claw-like hand. The disciples of our Pheasant's Grace Mountain will enter the cave from here. This was the safest path. There were a few spiritual lands with spiritual herbs along the way, and they were all extremely valuable. The Green Vine Elder stared at it for quite a while before shaking his head slowly. That won't do. The Lone Grave Elder nodded quickly before returning to his half-dead state. The Golden Pheasant Elder stood up impatiently. I just can't stand you two acting like this. Can't you be a little faster? Whether you agree or not, hurry up and come up with a plan. You just waste so much time every time. The Green Vine Elder said, Fellow Golden Pheasant, you're already so old, yet you're still so impatient. The Lone Grave Elder spat out another word. The Golden Pheasant Elder glared at him. Just when he was about to say something, his heart suddenly skipped a beat, and his face changed drastically. He abandoned the 2 elders and rushed out the window. In the town below the Green Vine Mountain, everyone raised their heads at the same time. All they saw was a speck of golden light rise up from the top of the Green Vine Mountain, like the brightest star in the night. Qi practitioners with exceptional eyesight managed to make out the origin of the golden light. It was a golden pheasant, dragging its long golden tail feathers as it shot through the night sky with unbelievable speed. It was like a golden comet. All the Qi practitioners could not help but sigh inside. So this was the power of a Foundation establishment cultivator. The town fell silent for a while before returning to its hubbub. It was even louder than just now. All the Qi practitioners seemed to have reignited their fighting spirit and ambition. They had no idea why a Foundation establishment cultivator who had always kept a low profile would suddenly rush out of the Green Vine Mountain. They wondered if something had happened to the alliance of the 3 mountains. Li Qingshan suddenly looked at the sky. His gaze pierced through the wind and snow, and a golden star appeared on the distant horizon. It shot straight towards his direction. Holy Church, because the distance was too far, the speed did not seem very fast, but Li Qingshan felt an unprecedented sense of crisis, as if a disaster was imminent and his life was at stake. This golden star was not something he could fight against right now. He restrained his aura and changed his direction to go deeper into the mountains. However, the golden star immediately changed its direction as well. He knew that his aura-concealing skill couldn't fool the senses of a foundation-building cultivator. He no longer hid his tracks and used an acceleration talisman to run toward the entrance of the underground cave with all his might. This scene overlapped with that snowy night from a year ago. It was shockingly similar. Unknowingly, it was as if a reincarnation had passed and he had returned once more. However, Brother Ox would not save him this time. He needed to rely on himself and little and followed Li Qingshan's instructions and hid in the dark clouds in the sky. She was prepared to come down and provide support as soon as she received Li Qingshan's signal. If Li Qingshan suppressed and hid his aura, then she had no aura at all. She was a special existence that hovered between life and death, neither alive nor dead, neither alive nor dead. No matter how sharp the golden pheasant Daoist senses were, it was impossible for him to discover a hidden skeleton. The scenery before him changed rapidly. Li Qingshan constantly conquered the rise and fall of the ground, but the golden star in the sky grew closer and closer. Li Qingshan felt an indescribable pressure, no longer the vague sense of danger. The golden star grew larger and larger in his vision. Even from 5 kilometers away, Li Qingshan was shaken to the core by its glorious presence. The golden pheasant also discovered the fleeing Li Qingshan. It raised its head and unfurled its wings, letting out a cry and shining with golden light. Like the call of a golden pheasant, the sun that had sunk into the west rose into the sky once more. The golden light clearly revealed the form of the golden pheasant. The comb, beak, feathers were all there. It was lifelike, but it was like a fighting chicken, filled with fury. The golden pheasant elder's eyes widened like a fighting chicken as his hair and beard bristled. His beloved disciple had been killed, so he was filled with sorrow and fury. He swore revenge. From the moment he saw Li Qingshan, he knew Li Qingshan was the person he was looking for. This was not because Li Qingshan was fleeing. As the sect master, he obviously knew about the humiliation of the inner sect disciple Song Ming in Salt Mountain City. However, the proud sword manor had been taken over by the Green Vine Mountain afterwards, so the matter was left unsettled just now. When the first senior brother went to seek revenge for Song Ming, he definitely had to report it to his master, which was why he was bold enough to take the disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain with him. Never did he think he would actually die. The resounding call of the golden pheasant shook up the mountains, constantly echoing through them. For a moment, the snowy peaks were filled with the cry of a pheasant. Li Qingshan's ears ached as his mind shuddered. The true qi in his body began to churn uncontrollably. He could not help but be shocked. This was the power of a foundation establishment cultivator. The spirit turtle's demon core in his body revolved, suppressing all of the discomfort. The cave was not far away now. All he had to do was make it over the mountain, and the valley up ahead would be there. He could not let the golden pheasant approach him, or he would be in life-threatening danger with just a single strike. However, at such a distance, Li Qingshan finally sensed the startling speed of the golden pheasant. The first senior brother could be regarded as fast as he could be, but compared to the golden pheasant, he seemed as slow as crawling on the ground. And the golden pheasant was not gliding. It was actually flying in the sky. As soon as Li Qingshan reached the waist of the mountain, the golden pheasant was already 1.5 kilometers away. With a twist of his foot, he forcefully changed directions and lunged towards the other side of the mountain. The golden pheasant spread its wings and several dozen golden feathers fell off, shooting over like lightning. They were like rays of light from the sun. Every single one of them was even swifter and more vicious than the spiritual artifact controlled by the first senior brother. Li Qingshan had been expecting this move long ago. He would move left at times, right at other times, pause at times, or even head down at times. As a result, His movements became completely irregular. The whale's ingestion of water no longer spat out a weapon, but a huge ice shield that could protect him. Even with that, he was still worried, so he stuck a high-grade golden armor talisman on himself. However, as soon as he did that, his eyes became filled with golden light. He did not even have the time to respond. The ice shield shattered and the golden armor shattered. As if he had been struck by lightning, Li Qingshan shuddered all over. A small hole appeared in his chest, and a golden light pierced through him. His tough skin, which could withstand the slashes of spirit artifacts, did not have much of an effect. The golden feather pierced through 3 layers of his defenses and pierced deeply into the mountain rocks. The golden pheasant elder frowned instead. With his cultivation at Foundation establishment, he actually failed to kill a puny chi practitioner in a single strike. No one would believe him even if he said it. The golden pheasant's feather should have pierced through Li Qingshan's heart. The defenses Li Qingshan had cast down were not useless. It gave him a split second to react. At the last moment he forcefully twisted his body, and only then did he avoid the attack. However, a sharp, scorching presence suddenly erupted from his body, as if it wanted to rip him to shreds and burn him to a crisp. The golden pheasant stopped in the air. The golden pheasant elder was in no hurry to pursue him. Even if it had failed to pierce through his chest, the spiritual energy within it was enough to kill him. Instead, he felt rather regretful. In his anger, he did not hold back. He should have captured him, interrogated him about his origins, and then tortured him to death. Little Anne's face stiffened. Li Qingshan had never sent out a signal. The golden pheasant elder had struck out with lightning speed, so Li Qingshan did not have the opportunity to send out a signal. He probably did not want her to take the risk either. Flames of fury burned in her eye sockets. She was about to lunge over without any regard. Li Qingshan suddenly leapt up from the ground, rolling and crawling around to the other side of the mountain and escaping from the golden pheasant elder's sight. The golden pheasant elder was slightly taken aback. A vicious smile appeared on his face as he bellowed, "You'll regret it just now. Why don't you just die?" Li Qingshan ignored him. Who knew how many times he had heard bullshit like that? The spirit turtle's demon core came into play once again at a crucial moment, forcefully suppressing the foreign spiritual energy that had erupted in his body. Suddenly he beamed with joy. The cave recorded on the mental map was right before him. Just when he was about to charge in, a golden light enveloped his head. With a flap of its wings, the golden pheasant flew over the top of the mountain and discovered Li Qingshan's tracks again. All it needed was a lunge and a claw, and it would be able to capture Li Qingshan in a single moment. Little Anne clenched her fists so hard that they cracked. It took her tremendous willpower to remain in the air. If she lost her patience and appeared casually, not only would she be unable to help Li Qingshan, but it would be very likely for her to end his chance of survival instead. If she slipped up and was captured, Li Qingshan definitely would not be able to escape alone. Before absolute power, it was pointless for the weak to work together. Instead, it would drag them down. Li Qingshan used all the strength in his body and leapt up, lunging towards the cave that was half covered in snow and half entangled by vines. Due to using too much strength, his bones and tendons creaked from twisting. He turned around in the air and faced the sky. He stared calmly at the golden pheasant's claws that reached over quickly. Before the sharp claws had even reached him, he felt a piercing pain on his skin. From such a distance, he could already see the golden pheasant elder's old, arrogant face inside the pheasant. Disdain and hatred intersected on his face. The corner of Li Qingshan's lips curled up. The talisman in his hand flashed and cracked, turning into a scarlet-red ball of fire. It rose into the sky and landed in the claws of the golden pheasant. The golden pheasant elder's expression became one of shock. He blurted out, "A supreme-grade talisman." Boom! Red light illuminated the entire sky. The mountains and rivers shook, and the ground shook. The boulders in the distance were blasted high up into the sky, and in the center of the explosion, be it the rocks or the vegetation, everything was melted and turned into flowing lava. Then, it quickly condensed in the ice and snow, forming a black circle. The golden pheasant elder was unscathed, but the pheasant's right foot had completely vanished. His face was flushed and twisted. Chapter 238. The golden pheasant elder let out a great roar. The golden pheasant flapped its wings madly, kicking up a fierce gust of wind that uprooted many towering trees. The sacred hall at this moment, the disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain all rushed over. They cried out, "Master! First senior brother?" A bunch of trash. The golden pheasant elder raised his hand, and the fierce gust of wind blew them away. They collided heavily against a tree and slid down, but none of them dared to grumble. "Forgive us, Master. Spare us, Master." The golden pheasant elder's heaving chest settled down slightly. He called out, "Where's Song Ming?" Song Ming made his way over meekly and knelt on the ground. "Master." Suddenly, he felt an invisible force press down on him, pushing him to the ground. The golden pheasant elder said, "This is all because of you. If it weren't for a piece of trash like you, your senior brother wouldn't have. Fellow golden pheasant, no one expected something like this to happen. Why must you vent your anger on a junior?" A slow, leisurely voice rang out from the sky. Before anyone knew it, the green vine elder and the lone grave elder had appeared in the air. The one who spoke was obviously the green vine elder. The two of them exchanged glances, and they seemed to be smiling. The three mountains were both allies, but they also competed with one another. One was stronger than the other. The Pheasant's Grace Mountain had lost a genius disciple, which was great news to them. They were even happier than obtaining a demon core. The golden pheasant elder became furious again. His chest heaved up and down viciously again. "This is a matter of my Pheasant's Grace Mountain. It has nothing to do with you two old coots. Fellow golden pheasant, that's where you're wrong. Our three mountains are allies, so your enemy is obviously our enemy. Once you return, immediately issue a bounty for the three mountains. We have to bring the culprit to justice," said the green vine elder, who knew whether he was smiling or not from his mouth hidden under his beard. The lone grave elder nodded. The golden pheasant elder was unable to turn him down. His desire to avenge his beloved disciple trumped his pride, but it had been a long time since he had been insulted like this. He ground his teeth and said, "If you find that kid, don't be in a hurry to kill him. Just contact me. I want to capture him alive and skin him alive to appease the hatred in my heart." Sacred Hall. Song Ming continued to lie on the ground. His face was ashen. Although he had survived, his future on the Pheasant's Grace Mountain could be regarded as gloomy once his master became disgusted with him. How did this happen? He could never have imagined that his eldest senior brother, who was in the 9th layer of chi refinement, would die at the hands of such a small fry. He had heard that Master had given him 2 supreme-grade talismans. Even if he encountered a Foundation establishment cultivator, he would have a way to survive. How could he die at the hands of a small fry? The other disciples of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain lowered their heads in grief and fury. The divine heaven's heaven was them all. Although heaven, sect King Out Yen heaven. In particular, the 2 8th-layer chi practitioners had always been firmly suppressed by the first senior brother, unable to catch a breather. Now that the first senior brother had passed away, they could obtain even more resources. They might even have the chance to inherit the position of sect master. Wasn't this fantastic news that had fallen from the heavens? Thinking of this, they exchanged glances and immediately turned away. Li, of Elder of Fi Chen Out, He Chen, King Out of Do Chi practitioners who are hated by Foundation establishment cultivators still have a way out? No one knew. Li Qingshan listened to them quietly. In the center of the mountain, in the depths of the earth, Li Qingshan had concealed all of his aura. He was like a hibernating toad, buried in the earth. Actually, even without purposefully concealing it, his aura was already extremely feeble. It was very difficult for people to detect him. His back had basically been charred completely. He could not feel anything at all. The tiny hole in his chest was currently ripping apart and growing larger bit by bit. Violent spiritual chi rampaged through his body. Even the spirit turtle's demon core was basically unable to suppress it. Who knew how many times he had braved death from a single encounter with a Foundation establishment cultivator? He had only barely managed to escape thanks to his talismans and the geographical advantage. However, he was still heavily injured. He was a mess from the inside out, completely immobilized by the earth. If he were a regular Qi practitioner, he would have died already. However, he could not care about the danger he was in, nor did he care about his wounds. He focused all of his attention on his ears, using his extraordinary hearing to listen to the words on the ground. He was focused and solemn. Only when the voices vanished did he suddenly smile. His smile gradually widened, revealing his ghastly, white teeth. Although there was no sound coming from it, the malevolence and insolence was becoming more and more intense. Sharp claws extended from his hands and feet, and his hair became scarlet red. At the same time, it spread throughout his body. His iron-black skin was densely covered in stripes that resembled tiger stripes. Even his eyes had become two beastly pupils filled with malice. He had actually broken through to the second layer of the tiger demon's fist of bone forging at a time like this. The path of the tiger demon could only be comprehended through intense battle. Li Qingshan had basically gone through 5 battles without stopping today. The Masked Man in Black was the first battle, the Truth-Seeking Society was the second battle, the Hawkwolf Guard was the third battle, the First Senior Brother was the 4th battle, and the Golden Pheasant Elder was the 5th battle. Each battle was more intense and dangerous than the last. He was heavily injured and exhausted, and only then did he manage to carve out a path of survival. He had been pushed to the limit. If he could survive, then he would erupt. Li Qingshan began to struggle, producing a soundless roar. His long canines were like sharp daggers as his body gradually grew larger, pushing aside the rock around him and turning into his demon form. Demon Qi surged, crushing and annihilating the foreign spiritual Qi in his body. The hole in his chest shrank, and the wounds on his back closed up rapidly, returning to normal a while later. No, they had become even tougher than before. After the great damage, the ox demon forges its hide had actually strengthened. It was like black metal had undergone another round of forging. Its defenses had doubled at the very least. Even if he was directly struck by a mid-grade spiritual artifact, he would not be damaged at all. Li Qingshan smiled in a self-deprecating manner. As it seemed, he would have to suffer a little more injuries in the future. With the powerful life force and regeneration of his demon body, he had completely recovered in a while. Letting out a gentle sigh, Li Qingshan used the spirit turtle's method of Qi suppression again and returned to human form. More accurately, he was half human, half beast. He did return to his original size, but he had a head of fiery hair, scarlet eyes, a mouthful of sharp teeth, and the pattern of a beast on his face. He did not seem human no matter how he looked at him. Li Qingshan could not be bothered with that. He found a direction and used his sharp claws to dig as hard as he could. An indescribable fire filled his heart, supporting his movements. The pitch-black soil seemed to become the faces of his enemies. He grabbed at them as hard as he could and ripped them apart. Only then could he ease the agitation in his heart. The tiger demon's main killer had the greatest influence on his mind. However, he no longer tried to control this influence and suppress this killing intent. Instead, he allowed it to blaze in his heart like a raging fire. Suddenly, his vision cleared up. He had finally dug out a cave that had not collapsed. He leapt down and turned around gracefully in the air, running towards the depths of the cave. In the desolate mountains, a child waited silently in a pit covered by the ocean. This was also the arrangement they had made. If they were separated, they would meet up at the entrance of another cave. She was expressionless and motionless. If it were not for her clothes fluttering in the wind, she would look like a marble statue standing in the snow from afar. However, her heart had long been like the magma under the icy plains, boiling hot and anxious. A black hoe that looked like a bear but was 3 or 4 times bigger took heavy steps in search of food in the forest. It suddenly sniffed, and a thick sandalwood fragrance came along with the cold wind. It passed through the dense forest and came to the edge of the pit. Looking down, it saw the motionless child. Saliva naturally flowed down. But then it hesitated. That child's body seemed to emit a formless radiance, holy and noble, awe-inspiring and inviolable. Buddhas bowed their heads to demons. Eminent monks walked the path, lions and tigers avoided them. However, in the end, the ferocity of its appetite overwhelmed its intelligence. It pounced towards the child, its huge body seeming incomparably light. Little and turned her head expressionlessly. Her glass-like eyes met its fierce gaze. It trembled all over. Flawless purity was also deep indifference. The clearest water could not contain a fish. She was not like a child, not even like a human. But then she suddenly turned her head, ignoring the black hoe that was already within reach. Her eyes rippled with heartfelt joy. At this time, her body suddenly became livelier. It was as if the exquisite puppet had turned into a human child. But Black Hoe's eyes were filled with panic. Unable to care about the prey in front of it, it turned and fled. A terrifying aura was rapidly approaching. Not long after Hei Ting escaped, a black silhouette pierced through the snow. Two glowing scarlet eyes appeared above Hei Ting's head and casually swung its claws. Hei Ting's brain immediately burst open and he fell to the ground with a whimper. But the black shadow was still not satisfied. Its long arms stretched out and pulled out a scalding heart. If a normal person saw this scene, they would definitely be frightened to the point of wetting their pants. Even Qi practitioners would tremble in fear. But the child's face was full of joy. She blurted out, "Qing Shan." The black shadow abruptly turned its head and stared straight at the child. The red light in its eyes gradually dissipated, and the dense killing intent on its body seemed to fade a little. It revealed a somewhat sinister smile. "This is the first time you've called my name." Facing little Anne's worried gaze, Li Qingshan smiled. "I've broken through to the second level. How is it? Not bad, right?" With a casual wave of his hand, for deep claw marks were left on the stone wall 10 meters away. Little Anne nodded seriously, expressing her admiration for his new appearance. "My little Anne sure has good taste." Li Qingshan laughed heartily. He picked her up and placed her on his neck, then walked into the cave. "Where are we going?" Little Anne asked. "To the underground meeting, of course." "Isn't it going to take many days?" "We need to prepare in advance to welcome our friends on the surface and do our duty as hosts." "Can I kill them all?" "Of course." Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.